so important to have a program for older adults because the fire death rate for people over 65 is 3 times higher than any other age group.
Well, I still forget to stay in the kitchen when I'm cooking, and I know I should.
The number one rule in the kitchen is stay in the kitchen while you're cooking. We don't care what saying you use. Look while you cook, watch what you eat, stand by your pan, as long as you stay in the kitchen while you're cooking. If a fire does happen in the stove, a lot of times these fires happen when people are out of the kitchen and they come back to a fire on the stove. If a fire does happen on the stove, we want you to leave the pot alone. Just leave it where it is. We want you to put an oven mitt on, take the lid, slide it across the top, turn the heat off on the stove, and leave the pot where it is to cool down on its own. A lot of people, if a fire happens on the stove, people want to pick it up and move it. Well, if there's flames coming off the pot, it's now coming at your face, and people will throw the pot to get the pot away from them. As well, a lot of people do everything right. They snuff out the fire with the lid on, and then they want to peek to see if the fire is actually out. That's a no-no, because the fire will actually flash on you and come out the pot. Just leave it alone, keep it, let it cool down on its own.
I find we have too much clutter around the stove too, which is very dangerous. So there's a lot of things that I have to go home and review.
When you have a fire on the stove, you want to prevent it from spreading. You certainly don't want to give it any fire load around the stove to allow the fire to grow. So we say clear the clutter. Make sure there's nothing around the stove that can cause the fire to spread, whether it's a spice rack or paper towels or sponges or your oven mitt too close by or combustible kettles. Make sure this stove area is absolutely clear, so if a fire does happen on the stove, it's not going to get going bigger. So I'm dressed like this to prove a point. Older adults often have circulation issues, so they tend to be a little colder sometimes, and they want to wear robes or just happen to have this and hanging about, or pajamas or some thin material to keep themselves warm. Don't cook around the stove with sleeves and that can actually reach across. We say don't reach for danger. So if this actually touched the stove, or if this thin material touched the stove as you're cooking, it's going to go up on flames right away. And an older adult might not have the ability to get down and do a stop, drop, and roll. And at that point, they're in extreme danger. When we talk about space heaters, obviously older adults have circulation issues and might be a little colder, and they need to have a little extra heat in their house or their home. So a lot of them have space heaters in here, and we say give space heaters space. That means space all around the unit, not just in the front, but on the back as well. Make sure you have at least 3-foot clearance around the space heater. As you can see, this one has actually gone a little rogue, and these do malfunction on occasion. And this actually caught curtains on fire behind because they didn't have the space behind the space heater.
Well, what I was interested in was the fire in the building, and I feel much safer now than I did before.
A lot of retirement homes or retirement buildings are high rises, so there's an issue of what to do when the fire alarm goes off. When the fire alarm goes off, you've got 2 choices. You either stay or you go. But once you make a decision, you have to commit yourself to that decision. Reasons to stay is if you encounter smoke in a corridor, smoke in the stairwell, if the fire department tells you to stay, or if you're unable to leave. If you're physically unable to leave, you must know how to protect yourself in the apartment, but make that decision when the fire alarm goes off. If you decide to leave, you can't wait until the fire department shows up and then leave. If you hear the fire alarm and you've decided to leave, that is the time to go. As soon as you hear the tones, commit to that decision then. If you leave and you experience smoke in the corridors or stairwells, then at that point back up and get in your apartment. You're much safer in your apartment. If the fire department shows up and you've decided to leave at that point, your window of opportunity of leaving safely has diminished entirely. And if there is a fire in the building, it's much more dangerous to leave at that point. If you decide to protect in place and you're in your apartment, you need to protect yourself from fire. A wet towel at the bottom to prevent any smoke from coming into the door. You can use duct tape along the sides to prevent any smoke from coming in. If there is any signs of smoke entering your apartment, certainly call 911 to let us know that you're in your apartment and that you need to be, attention needs to be directed there. As well, if you're unable to leave and you're physically unable, you can call 911 as well to let us know you're there as well.
Like myself, when I first hear the fire alarm, I want to get out. But I know if I don't get out right away, that stay. Like I learned a lot today. really.
The issues with older adults is they don't want to call 911 because they feel like they're bothering the fire department and they don't want to put us out. When they experience an emergency, they have to know that they need to call 911 to get the fire service there in order to help them instead of feeling like they're bothering us. A lot of times they'll call their friend first before they actually call the fire service, and that's not good. They need to feel comfortable calling 911. Carbon monoxide, often referred to as CO, is a gas that you can't smell, can't see, can't taste. It's not even an irritant until it reaches dangerous levels. It's caused by the incomplete combustion of fuel-fired appliances, such as your hot water heater, your furnace, or your gas fireplace, which can release dangerous carbon monoxide fumes into the home. The symptoms of CO poisoning are headaches, nausea, dizziness, drowsiness, possible vomiting, the same symptoms as the common flu. So people sometimes think they have the symptoms of the flu when in fact they may have carbon monoxide poisoning. You wouldn't know it unless you had a detector in your house to detect the gas in your home. The only way to detect this dangerous carbon monoxide in your house, since you can't see, smell, or taste it, is to buy a carbon monoxide detector. And they come in various types. Some have a nice display on the front that show how many parts per million are in the house. Others come with just an alarm device to let you know that there is a problem. Carbon monoxide distributes equally throughout the house, not like smoke. Smoke rises. The carbon monoxide actually equally distributes throughout your house. The best spot to place these is outside your bedroom. So the only way to prevent this dangerous carbon monoxide gas from entering into your home is to have your gas appliances serviced annually. The fire service recommends having a technician come in and service your appliances such as your water heater, your furnace, your gas fireplace, your gas stove if you cook with a gas stove, to have them serviced annually to make sure they're functioning properly. When your carbon monoxide detector goes off, it's obvious you have a problem in the house, possible carbon monoxide gas in the house. Don't ignore it. Don't unplug it, take the battery out, call 911, especially older adults. A lot of times older adults don't want to bother the fire department. Call the fire department to get them there as soon as possible. When the fire department shows up, they'll come through the front door and they'll get an initial reading at the very front door. If the fire department comes through the front door and they get an initial reading, they're going to immediately leave to pack up and go on air to come back in the house to inspect the entire house. That switch on the wall, Dave, the red one. When you have a carbon monoxide detector and you call 911 to get the fire department there, make sure you call 911 from an outside source, outside of the home. As well, keep your windows and doors shut. If you open your windows and doors, you've dissipated the gas and the fire department may not get readings when they show up. And then you have an alarm a week later. So keep your windows and doors shut, call 911 from outside of the home.
Hi, I'm Joel with the Bremerton Fire Department. I'd like to take a moment to talk with you about fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers are a safe, effective tool for extinguishing small fires. When it comes to fire, be smart. This fire extinguisher, which most people have in their home, will discharge its entire contents in 10 to 15 seconds. That is why we use fire extinguishers on small fires. Fire extinguishers are rated A, B, and C fires. A being ordinary combustibles such as paper and wood products. B being flammable and combustible liquids such as gas. C for electrical fires such as your toaster or blender. To use the extinguisher, remember pass. Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Pull the pin. Aim at the base of the fire, not the flames. Squeeze the trigger. And sweep at the base of the fire. Pull the pin. Aim at the base of the fire, not the flames. Squeeze the trigger and sweep at the base of the fire. Some important things to remember. Always keep the exit between you and the fire. If the fire grows rapidly and becomes too large to extinguish, exit the area. If you are inside, shut the doors on your way out. Keep the extinguisher where it is accessible. Small fires spread rapidly. In summary, fire extinguishers are used to extinguish small fires. Never put yourself at risk by attempting to extinguish large fires. Possessions can be replaced. You can't.